think through in the English language because, let me try. I really want to give all my time to Tekla. So her presentation was I was very impressed by Dr. Wang and Tekla's presentations, and I think I share to a great extent with them, really. But I work under different conditions. First of all, I work in China. Second, I work with the Japanese. Tekla also work with many other nationalities human rights group. Yeah, but one of them is a Japanese human rights group, right? We met them in Toronto and in Vancouver. But we work, our movement is a Sino-Japanese civil movement. So it's different too. Dean didn't tell me much about this conference, and I just asked him, what should I speak at the conference? He said, just tell us what you have been doing after the lawsuit, so post-lawsuit activities, something like that.
No, so I said moving forward.
Moving forward. Of course, we are moving forward. The time flies. And
so we're like doing a stand-up committee.
The lawsuit. I have to give a very brief introduction about the lawsuit. Let's focus on the result of the lawsuit, the verdict we received in 2002 by the Tokyo District Court. So first of all, it confirmed for the first time in history that the Japanese army used extensively biological weapons in China and caused a disasters, inflicted damages, a great deal of damages to the Chinese civilians. So this is that. And second, it rejected our demand for compensation and apology based on the 1972 Chinese-Japanese joint community. Yeah. So I think Professor Guan Jianqiang is going to elaborate on that. Third, he said, biological warfare. But he said biological warfare was against international law. But of course, it was against international law, and the Japanese government was responsible for that. But he said, if you want to raise it up, bring it forward, issue again, because the verdict said it's over. The responsibility issue was resolved because the Chinese government denounced the demand for compensation, something like that. So if you want to bring it up again, you have to through diplomatic and political channels, approaches in diplomatic and political, through political channels, etc., something like that. So our movement, I think, started from it's the result of verdict. And the result was maintained until in 2007, in May, the Supreme Court handed over a decision. This decision turned down our demand for compensation, for appeal, but didn't mention anything about the confirmation of the history. So which means the confirmation of the Japanese biological warfare as a fact given by the verdict of the Tokyo District Court was not overturned. It's still there. So our movement post the lawsuit started, I think, with that. And the decision given by the Supreme Court was given in May 2007, and in July 2007, the same year, we had a meeting, and Tekla was there with a large group of Canadian history teachers, and Ignatius Dean was also there with some American history teachers. We had discussions, and Tekla introduced the try to help us. That's in China. And first of all, we had, Professor Su agreed to let us use his place. And then we were kicked out. In the midnight, he called me. He said, you couldn't use my place. We were kicked out. We were hurried. I had to find the money to rent a place, things like that, because it's China. And then, anyway, at the meeting, we decided we must have the government give permission for us to set up a NPO in China, Japanese biological warfare victims group as a NPO. Yeah, but we got the idea from GA, Global Alliance, because Tekla told me everything about Global Alliance in 1996. So we said, let's set up local ones, small local ones, because the local policemen know us well. And the government might think it's because we are neighbors of them. They might think it's easy to take care of us. So we say, let's set up the small groups locally, and then have something like a Global Alliance as a national umbrella organization. And so we tried from that. So in 2009, and okay, next year, in 2008, suddenly I became a member of the political consultative conference, something like that, not upper chamber, because we didn't really have the power. But I could submit proposals. So every year I submit proposals, suggest that the government build up museums, okay, have a medical aid to the rotten-legged old people. Because we thought we were very embarrassed every time Tekla brought a large group of history teacher to see the rotten-legged old people and try to raise funds to them. We think we should show some care to them. So every year I submit the same proposals, but slowly in my the members of the political consultative conference are divided into different groups. So in my group, people they joined me and signed for the proposals. So at the last year, I always have to say not more than 10 members. So always 10 members signed the proposals, my proposals for us. And we also proposed that the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs should have a dialogue, should talk with the Japanese government and demand the Japanese government to declassify the documents of Unit 71. But there's no answer to our proposals. So only one thing. So you can say, we also asked them to let us set up the NPO of victims groups in China. Museums, so we have been doing the same thing as Tekla and Dr. Wang have been doing in Canada, but we are doing that in China. But the thing, that's the turning point in 2008, because the Minzu-dang, the Democratic Party in Japan, won the election. Suddenly everything changed for us. So in 2009, and there's a change. So there's a government permission by the EU government, EU municipal government, handed over us a permission, official permission. When we were filling out the forms, they asked us to write down the names of members and addresses. When we were doing that, going through the procedures, written procedures, suddenly, not a campaign, but something like a security department, something like in China. They went to the Chinese, not the CIA, the Chinese maybe National Security Bureau sent some members to send somebody to the local government to give them pressure. And so the local government had to, give them a lot of pressure, and so that they not canceled, so they didn't issue the certificate to us. So we were in the middle of a procedure, and they never gave us the written certificate. But the media, the international media had reported that. So the Japanese the Japanese library, National Library, keep record. Okay, how to say? They had information, so that they kept the record of important information, annual important information. So you can, if you go to the Japanese State Library, you check on information, important information for the year for 2009, you will see the reportage of us. They say the first war victim NPO was established in China. It's still there. So anyway, it has to be reported on the internet, so that though we have never received the certificate, but the Changde victims group in Changde tried to lobby, tried to go to see their governments and say, show them the media reporting, say, how could you approve? Let the EU guys have their NPO, but not us. So they tried to push and for 2 years. And in 2011, eventually, the local government in Changde issued permission to the victims group. But they didn't know. They didn't know we never received the document, okay, the certificate. So they had, so you see, so in 2011, the Changde, the first war victims NPO was set up in Changde.
Yeah, that's called divide and conquer.
So yeah.
It's good to have a misunderstanding.
Yeah, it's good. It's yeah. Sometimes 中国人说歪打正着，歪打正着。
Hit it from the side.
So anyway, let's see the things in Japan. So in 2009, we had an NPO set up in the middle. So and then in Japan, we went to Japan. Japan organized a large scale. I mean, the Minzudang, the Democratic Party, really, they set up a 跨党派怎么讲 ？Inter-party congressmen's group on war responsibility issues. They worked for us, and they through them we met the spokesperson, or in Chinese they say president of the Congress and the Senate. We met them for the first time, and they were very. How to say? They say they knew about Unit 731. When they were young, they helped with the Unit 731 exhibits in Japan. They all knew about that. And they were very open-minded and friendly to us. And we saw this hope for it. So we made a suggestion to the Japanese, our Japanese comrades. We said, why don't you set up a group to press the Japanese government to declassify the documents? And they say, Wang, you should urge the Chinese government to declassify your documents. So I went to talk with the provincial government and made a proposal. I say, why don't we, just the Zhejiang province, because I'm a provincial political consultative conference member. I went to see the Chinese provincial government's history department. I say, why don't we make a compile the 档案, the documents, official documents in the archives, in the provincial archives. So they started preparing that. But now we are doing that now. And then the Japanese set up a group, call it 救民会, means clarify the historical truths of Unit 731 and the biological warfare. And they started, so through the Democratic Party, they set up a dialogue system, regular system of dialogue with the Department of Defense. And they, every time they push the Department of Defense to declassify the documents, they kept saying, no, we don't have that. So they showed them a magazine published by the Japanese army during the war. They say, you have this magazine. They say, we don't have that. Oh, we have never seen that. We don't have that in our library, things like that. But things have changed. Because recently the Department of Defense in Japan said that they have found some of the documents and they apologized because the Japanese friends sued. At the last, they sued the Department of Defense. So they found the documents. They say they apologized to the Japanese civilians group and said, and they will do research. 他们说他们要再从头开始重新做一遍。relaunch the investigation again with a serious attitude, with a better attitude. They say like this in the newspaper. So this is the situation in Japan. And then in 2010, the Japanese set up an NGO because we failed, right, in EU before. So in 2010, they say, oh, if you can't do that, let's set up one in Japan for you. So they set up an NGO in Japan approved by Ishihara Shintaro, you know, the writer, the mayor of Tokyo. He's a writer, but he gave permission for us. So I became, they have 3 representatives for the NPO. I'm one of them. So actually, the Ishihara Shintaro on this matter behaved better. He gave us a permission. Because the permission issued by the Tokyo municipal government with a seal of Ishihara Shintaro on that.
石原慎太郎批准的，日本东京知事。
东京知事 writers.
You translate to Chinese.
Yeah, 石原慎太郎. Yeah. Okay, then every year, so we decided in 2008 we took a rest. Because everybody got exhausted. So there's not much major activities in 2008. And in 2010, we made a decision that annually the Japanese group, the Japanese civilian group will come to China, have a joint meeting with us. And then we will send some representatives to Japan. And through that arrangement, we'll look to meet the congressmen, the senators, and also to attend the witness testimony meetings to testify in front of the Japanese civilians. So we have this exchange annually. Have been doing that, and for this panelist discussion, there's supposed to be other 3 Chinese, right? Was supposed to come because we were too busy with the joint conference just at the beginning of November. So they didn't have time to go through the visa procedure. I thought of canceling the trip, but Guan Jianqiang reminded me, Wang, have you done your visa application? He said it's very easy now. So I made some time, and it's really easy. So I was able to come here. So let's see. In 2011, it's very important thing happened. So in Unit 731, a very important researcher of Unit 731, his name is Jin Zishun-yi, Kaneko Junji. So this book, his doctor's thesis was discovered in Japan by one of our Japanese comrades. Let's call them friends or comrades, they're good Japanese. So this book, there's a thesis, there's an article in this book written by a very famous Japanese historian about his doctor's thesis. So this doctor's thesis, 它里面有一篇文章 is made of 8 papers on 8 studies on Japanese biological warfare. One of them has a title PX as a BW weapon. PX means flea, flea with plague germ, contaminated with flea infected with plague is called PX. Short term is PX by Unit 731. It's the efficiency of a PX as a weapon, something like that. And it mentioned the 6 and he tried to make a formula to measure the efficiency of a PX as a weapon. So the data he used from 6 attacks in China, they attacked with PX. The 6 places, one is Nong'an in Jilin province, and they attacked that place twice. It's within the territory of Manchuria. It's within Manchuria. And the third target was Quzhou in Zhejiang province. Tackler knows the biological warfare of that place well. You mentioned about Doolittle's area, right? Doolittle's area. So they dropped 8 kilos of fleas on Quzhou from the air. 8公斤, 8 kilos. 1 gram of flea has 有1700次, 1,700 fleas is of 1 kilo. It's of 1 kilo weight. Yeah, 8 kilograms. 8 kilograms onto Quzhou. This information is totally new. And then Ningbo, and then Changde, and then Jinhua. No, not Jinhua, Jiangxi province, 3 places. And it was discovered. So the mass media in China also reported on that discovery, but there's not much social response. I had to write an article by myself, but it's still there's not much social attention in China either. And but one thing I would like to let you know is that Jin Zisui, he received his doctor's degree. His doctorate degree was granted by Tokyo University shortly after the Tokyo trial was over. Tokyo trial was over in November 1948. 2 months later, he was granted doctor's degrees by Tokyo Imperial University with his 8 papers on biological warfare studies. Can you believe it? Could you believe that? So, so yeah, we have been doing that for until today. We just we are still trying to. We're still trying to. Okay. In 1000 this year, early this year, EU. The NP, I mean the victims group, the EU's local government had gave us a permission for setting up a victims group in EU. But they insisted we have to use say victims' families. 遗属会they want us to change the name, not victims group, but victims' families group. I don't know why they insisted on that, but they apologized to us. They apologized to us. They made a mistake. They should be more. Anyway, but other 还有其他的受害地点嘛？ But there were many places in Zhejiang province attacked by Japanese army with biological weapons. They all tried to set up victims groups, but so far without success. And but anyway, EU's government has begun to prepare for the building of a museum on the history of biological warfare this year, but it's very slow. Because in 2004, they promised me they were going to begin to build a museum. They said, well, if you promise to give us all the documents you have, all the materials you have on biological warfare, we will start building up the museum. In 2004, 10 years has passed. So the government works very slow because it doesn't have anything to do with making money, with the economy, with the GDP. So it can work very, very slow. And then, but anyway, this year things 好像情况有点变了. The situation has turned, and the 新民晚报, I mean the 新民 evening newspaper, the most popular newspaper, they have a million subscribers, over a million subscribers in Shanghai, covered the investigation of me and my students. So we have been, when first time when the tackler took the group of Canadian teachers to see the rotten like old people in 2004, right? At that time we set it up a university investigation society in the university, Ningbo University, and then we started area investigation, because we know we need area data to prove these old, rotten leg old people were victims of biological warfare. Because biological warfare, 它是很复杂的，它不是一个人受害，它是群体的受害。OK， 群体受害 ，how to say it？ 群体 ，not one guy got sick, but in one place many people got sick at the same time. But we need the data. All the president told us, oh, many people in our village got rotten leg, but we didn't have the data. So the university students and I started doing copy style investigation. We went through village by village, But I don't have I have the map. I can send you that. And we have now we have collected over 800 rotten leg old people survivors oral history. 我们有非常详细的调查表。It's in my email, but I don't have it in my stick. So otherwise, I can show you 我们的调查表是怎么样的。It's very. 现在我们有 we have collected over 800 rotten leg old people's oral history. We recorded, and we have a record of oral history of over 1,000, not rotten leg, but the villages. In Zhejiang province, Jinhua and Quzhou, and we are working on that. We are going to have them published next year. And that's all for my. And so because we are getting old, we're aged, so we think we should, So we should, but we have young people, not like GA. So I had thought that the Chinese, only China has a one-child policy, but the GA has the same Jenny, right? So we said, we have become history too. 所以我们说 every one of us, each locality of attacked place, we make one book on BW history, one book and one exhibit. So this is I'm not able to bring enough copies to you. This is an exhibit. The material of an exhibit made by the 义工 volunteers, local volunteers. It's very good. He sent it to Shanghai, and I say I will bring some copies to you, and one book. And then I helped make this book. So you don't get paid for doing things like this. And they gave me 20 copies. They say we can't give you money. They give you 20 copies of the book. But I brought here with me about 100 copies to you. Yeah, it's very important. But all the information, the reliable studies, you can use the information for your educational materials.
I just want to clarify. You're saying that each locality, victimized community, produce one book and one individual exhibition.
Yes, great. Yes. And we plan to have an exhibit fair for exhibits next year in Yiwu. Ask each locality to bring over their exhibits, and we have them displayed in the museum, in our museum. Because the peasants in my village set up a museum. Museum. We have a museum of our own, but it's getting very. No. Getting the materials get old. People get old, and materials get old also. Yes. We ask each locality attack the places to make an exhibit and bring them all over to Yiwu. We have them to show something new to the local people. Because the government works very slow. If they start building the museum, it takes 5 years at least. So we can't wait.
Yeah, the Chinese government said Wang Xuan moved too fast. But anyway.
我想这本书啊 ，Tackler, you can use the material. Yeah, it's very reliable, very solid study.
So, Moshe, I just want also to know, so in each locality, they have already sort of good enough talents.
Yes, all volunteers. All volunteers. I have never received any money from the Chinese government either, as you said at the beginning. Otherwise, people will say you are spies, as Dr. Wang said. But I found that it's a good way to make money, because if somebody say, "Oh, you are a government spy," I can sue, and I can get 6-digit compensation. But if I see Japanese yen, it's 8-digit. The compensation will be 8-digit. But they never say that because they know we don't have money. I had some donation from hacker. Otherwise, I can't say, because everything we work on our own. This is something I insist that we have to be independent. We are totally 民间. It's very important. And I also bring you something, a compilation of the documents from archives. It's made by Jilin Provincial Archives. They're all Canton Police Army's documents. And this is a gift to, maybe I should, because they're all in Japanese, maybe I should leave them to casting. But I want you to send the first copy. I want to save some postage, actually, as a matter of fact. Because the first volume has interrogation report on the American crew members who of B-29 was shot down, the airplane was shot down in 1944. I couldn't go to sleep and I woke up last night. I went through the books written by a Pacific War, written by an American. It didn't mention, it mentioned about the Mark 10 POW camp in China, but not about that. Because I read it, I learned it from 2 books. It's in my memory, as I remembered, in 2 places, the Unit 731 veterans said they used American crew members for human experiments.
请问你一下，你知不知道他们一共用了多少种不同的细菌在这个？
在什么地方？在哪里啊？在
我不知道，就是说，我问的原因就是说，我是在那个时候在重庆附近，那个地方在蓝温泉，结果突然呢，有人开始得了这个脑膜炎，因为那个地方从来没有过脑膜炎，突然得了脑膜炎。
Okay, 脑膜炎 I just forget about it.
所以有人猜他可能是这个他散的细菌下来的，有没有记录还是怎么样
？Okay, 脑膜炎 how to say what's the English word for that? But anyway, Unit 731.
There's a doctor there. Meningitis, yeah.
Meningitis. No, but Unit 731 did study meningitis, and I just finished it. 也是一个档案资料，就是有3000页，300 pages. I just submitted a study. So anyway, during interrogation, Li Shishiro, the commander of Unit 731, said, he said 3 germs are the most effective biological weapons. One is plague. And second is anthrax.
Yes.
Third is meningitis. So as the most effective biological weapons.
Yeah, but we don't have any record. The meningitis is not in the list. However, the Japanese turned over some of the records to the Americans after 1946, but the American didn't translate all of them and give back 80% of the records to the Japanese.
But there is one document we found with Japanese researcher and some Beijing University graduate students in Nara, in the United States, in Nara, in Minnesota, in Nara. It did mention that the Japanese were transporting germ bombs. It mentioned that cholera, something like this, and also meningitis.
Yeah, we had to declassify the record to show.
One or two documents mentioned meningitis.
Yeah, a list of the
meningitis.
Meningitis is not in the list I have.
In two documents.
Yeah.
Two documents of what?
You might have.
Meningitis?
Yeah, meningitis. He said the Japanese were sending germ bombs. He mentioned several names of several germs. So one of them is meningitis.
Sichuan was a cholera.
We didn't know where he used it and how he used it.
不是霍乱，那个
Cholera. Yeah, cholera. 在成都。
你提到那个 rotten legs。
That's anthrax and.
这是 anthrax 吗？
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a secondary.
So, in 2002, the author of History of Death, Professor Sheldon Harris, came to China to my province and with two American doctors. And the two American doctors insist that they were victims of biological warfare. And they also confirmed BBC because the BBC was hesitated putting having the scenes of the rotten leg old people in their documentary. They confirmed, they made sure of it, saying that they were most probably victims of biological warfare. But they say there are two kinds of victims. One is looks like anthrax,
Dr.
and one is glanders.
Martin Fermansky went with Sheldon Harris to China to investigate. Dr. Fermansky is the one identified that 2001. Remember the Connecticut anthrax attack?
Oh, yeah.
He was the one certified that. He's the pathologist that certified that. He is the U.S. expert on anthrax attack. So he, after that, went to China to investigate. However, the rotten leg is a secondary problem because the anthrax caused loss of immunity to any skin disease. So the people over 60 years, they are infected by other germs. The rotten leg was the consequence of the other germs and not the anthrax itself.
We know that they brought from Unit 731 for the Zhejiang Jiangxi campaign as a retaliation of Doolittle's air raid to Tokyo, 130 kilograms of the anthrax. But we don't know how they used them, where they used them. But large number of people got rotten leg disease at the same time in very concentrated places, almost all Zhejiang provinces. And we have a document, it is an investigation report of damages caused by Zhejiang Jiangxi campaign, by the Japanese army in Zhejiang Jiangxi campaign. The report was made in September 1942. I have the photo of this report. It says, in one town, the total population, we don't have an exact number of the total population. It will never be more than 20,000. But it said over 2,000 people had a rotten leg disease.
Yeah, in other words,
in 3 months' time.
There's no direct incriminating evidence, but statistical models suggest that the proportion of the population within certain area where they have the germ weapon were dropped, and they contract the same type of disease. So the circumstantial evidence suggests the germ warfare.
Yeah, if it's anthrax, people don't have so tolerant.
Yeah, it's contagious.
It's not contagious between humans. You get infected from the germ, not from the other people around you. So it's impossible for 10% of the population to have the rotten leg disease at the same time.
They don't give it to each other. Yeah.
And I just learned from the best doctors in China. They told me, they say, usually old people have rotten legs. Never young people. Never children. And then they say they have their patients had the rotten leg disease for 23 years. It's the longest. But never heard of any cases like a wound there would have been 60 or 70 years long. So we're all abnormal, not normal, not natural.
Wang Xuan, I went to Unit 731 on my 2010 tour. Wang Xuan, 我看的那个在后面，在那个 museum 的后面，我看的那个有一些记录，就是在广东省 in the canton in the Guangdong province they had also a factory that was producing biochemical warfare.
Yes,
it wasn't
yes.
just in Jiangda, it wasn't just in Dongbei, it was in Guangdong province.
Yes. Also in Guangdong province and also in Nanjing,
Right.
also in Beijing.
Right.
They all mass-produced germs. There were records of that. There's no question with that. And also, I found in one of the documents, one of the confessions, one of the the commander of the biological warfare troops in Nanjing, he said there's no question that we use biological weapons against the Chinese army in the mid part of China, which they mean, 他们说中支那就是指中支那，没法就讲 ，yeah， 就是 not 华中，就是华东 ，we call it the 华东 East China area. They say, he said the effect of the biological bombs were very strong, particularly when they were loaded with anthrax. When they were loaded with anthrax, the effect was soon apparent. What does it mean? They used it in the battlefield. They used it in the battles. They used it so that they had experience. In this book, there's an article in this book written by a paper, I'll call it the paper. You can see they have calculated, the Japanese Unit 731 has calculated the number of the people who got infected the first time, the infected and death rate of plague bombs. And the second infection they have calculated. And their numbers sometimes were 10 times as high as the numbers we have in our history record. So we don't argue with the Japanese because our numbers are smaller, much smaller. So there's no argument. We argued sometimes, but no argument because we don't have that number, that data. Yes.
Now that the tension between China and Japan is shifting, changing, and the Supreme Court of Japan did suggest that if you are going to take it up again, it must be through political and diplomatic channel.
Yeah.
So, do you see any hope of the Ministry of Foreign Trade and Relations of China would pick up the matter now and proceed to do something with it?
Yes, we push.
Yeah, I know that you have a program, you mentioned about it. Is there any, chance of some breakthroughs here?
Yeah, I don't think so because it's always a lip service because, they have press conference, they will give their standpoint and attitude, but they don't do things in the way you suggest. I think Professor Guan Jianqiang will elaborate on that. Also, Professor Su, because when Jin Zishunyi, when Kaneko Jin Zishunyi, and his name he was also interrogated by the Americans. Jin Zishunyi, and the Americans say this guy knows the most about biological weapons. So I sent them. I submitted a proposal with a copy of a paper of Jin Zishunyi of Kaneko Jones. I think you should use that.
I want to ask you, since China seems to be doing differently now, be declaring for the first time on December 13th as a national holiday to commemorate the rape of Nanjing. And so it seems a signal to the world that they are now getting more active, and it seems a signal that they are unwilling to become passive and taking a more active role. How does that affect your movement in China?
Yeah, I think it's very symbolic. It's easier to do things to have some. It's a political decision to have something like national mourning
day
for, but it's symbolic. I think it's easier to do.
One step at a time.
Yes.
We were asking, for example.
I submitted them the paper by Kaneko Jomi, Jin Zishunyi. I said you should use this go and talk with the Japanese government, ask them to declassify the documents. I like it, yeah.
But you don't think
the Chinese government allow accept lawsuit in Chinese court.
right?
After we basically discuss and encourage the Chinese lawyer to submit those requests in 2004 when we were in Beijing, okay? But took 10 years. This year, finally, was the first. Well, there are a number of cases received, but never added up. They just never actually have any hearing at all. They just receive the cases.
Well, I think it's politically very symbolic because the Chinese government want to raise people's awareness. They call it 爱国主义教育.
Patriotic
education. But we want, the victims want them to solve the problem concretely. But this is symbolic here. We want them to solve the problems, to have the Japanese government, so we always have the Japanese to investigate. Japanese government has to investigate too, because many of them don't know much about biological warfare. They have to investigate and talk with us, right, to declassify the documents, to put the history into their textbooks. But they told me, in several Japanese textbooks of high school now have mentioned about Unit 731.
But you know, Wang
Things have been changing in Japan.
It's important for the government to take the role that it is now taking, because
Yeah, but I
Julie
do
and
not
I were
represent the government.
at a dinner in the Consul
But I
General's
agree with
home,
you.
and the Consul General says it is very important for the grassroots organization to take this active position like you are taking. But the government itself can take another role that it has never taken before.
But they should take the role by Chinese constitution. They should go, they have
think
the
that there's a
obligation
parallel-
to go and
parallel
talk with the
movement.
Japanese government.
I think it's very important that
But
we
there is a good
do
sign,
what we
because
do
the
and they
Chinese
do what they do.
But
it's
the
movement.
Chinese government is now saying, governed by law. Governed by 法治.
Right.
Governed by
The
law.
rule of law.
They should abide by constitution.
There's no rule of law in China, we know that, come on.
But they are saying that now they rule by law, and they say this is a big change because this is a re-regulation of the relationship between the state and the civilian. It's very important. State and civilian.
We'll have a chance to discuss it tomorrow afternoon. We will have a closed session talking about strategic.
Closed session.
Yes, we'll have GA members only have a closed session and discuss a strategic move and how we can encourage and move all government, not just Chinese, Japanese, and American government move in the right direction to resolve the issue. And we can speak about the process, but making our own right move. So,
Just one more minute, last minute. 这个档案就是出版的时候嘛，因为这个关东军的档案是50年代就找到了，50年代就找到了。那我就问他们，我去开会了，我就问他，如果我说你们是，那么我就讲改革开放以后上，我说如果30年以前你们就出版这个档案的话，性是会是怎么样，事情会怎么样？我说我们再想一想，如果50年以前我们就出版的档案会怎么样？日本也许不是现在这个样子。我说我们需要反省。
well, we just have to move forward. Thank you very much. And,
But I think we have Asahi Shimbun reporter here. Asahi Shimbun went through a lot of troubles because because of their reportage on the Constable testimony, on the reportage on they went through a lot of trouble because the writers 他们给他们找麻烦，他们好像很不容易的。
well,
Professor Su has the details.
Well, yeah, but Asahi Shimbun is the most courageous newspaper in Japan and disclose a
But they
lot
are
of.
having troubles.
Yeah, so what? Yeah, so what? Everybody make mistakes, and